In a small, charming town nestled between rolling hills, Jake quietly walked into the local diner. It was a place he frequented, but today felt different. The usual warmth of the diner seemed muted, as if the air was thick with something unspoken. Jake slid into his favorite booth near the window, his mind racing. He was a man of simple habits. He enjoyed the smell of fresh coffee, the jingle of the bell above the door, and the soft chatter of familiar faces around him. But today, swirling doubts filled his heart. Just last week, he had a very public disagreement with the diner's owner, Tom. They were both stubborn men, each believing he was right. It had left Jake feeling raw and exposed. Glancing around, he noticed the diner was half full. Some of the regulars waved, but the atmosphere felt heavy. As Jake awaited his usual coffee, he wondered what Tom must think of him now. They had shared many laughs over the years. Were those moments now overshadowed by their fight? The waitress, a cheerful young woman named Lily, approached his table. She asked, her smile lighting up her face, yet there was a hint of concern in her eyes. Jake nodded quietly. As she poured his coffee, he caught a glimpse of Tom behind the counter. They locked eyes for a brief second, and an unexpected wave of regret washed over him. Maybe he was too harsh. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to apologize, but no words formed in his mind. Instead, he looked back down at his coffee, swirling the dark liquid gently. With the coffee steaming in front of him, the world outside the diner window beckoned. Cars passed by and people hurried along the street, but inside it felt as if time had stopped. An unease wrapped around him. Could he simply ignore what had happened? Did he really want to stew in anger? Minutes turned into what felt like an eternity. He took a sip from his cup. It was just right. But the taste of bitterness lingered, not from the coffee, but from his unresolved feelings. Then, without warning, Jake's phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up and saw a message notification from Tom's number. His heart raced. He hesitated, glancing up at the owner, who seemed deep in conversation with another customer. Could Tom possibly want? Jake took a deep breath and opened the message. Hey Jake, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how I handled things last week. You mean a lot to the diner and to me. A mix of surprise and confusion washed over him. Apologized. Tom was the one who had raised his voice, yet there it was, a genuine message that peeled away the layers of pride and stubbornness. He felt a flutter of hope, but alongside it, fear crept in. What if the conversation would be uncomfortable? What if he was met with more anger? He hit send and put his phone back down, anxiety swirling in his stomach. He glanced once more at Tom, who was now wiping down the counter, seemingly unaware of the emotional battle happening inside Jake. Lily returned with a slice of pie, placing it gently on the table. She asked, noting the furrowed brow. Jake forced a smile, his brain buzzing. Just trying to sort things out, he replied. She nodded and walked away, but her eyes lingered on him for a moment longer, holding an understanding he couldn't quite grasp. The door jingled again, and a group of loud teenagers entered, their laughter breaking the tension in the room. But the sound felt distant to Jake. He was trapped in his thoughts, reliving the fight with Tom, how the argument had escalated, how both had refused to back down. They were like two stubborn mules, neither willing to budge. But now a spark of hope flickered in his chest. Could it really be that simple? Could apologies mend what felt shattered? In that moment of vulnerability, he realized how important his connection to Tom and the diner was. This wasn't just a place for diner food, it was a backdrop to countless memories. A tapestry of shared moments that tied him to this town, to this man. Just as he finished his slice of pie, Jake's phone buzzed again. Another message from Tom. How about we meet in the back? Jake's heart quickened. The back room was where they often discussed ideas for the diner, future menus, and even local events. It felt safe. He knew he had to take this chance to clear the air. With a firm nod to himself, he made his decision. Standing up, he wiped his hands on his napkin, feeling a mix of determination and trepidation. As he walked toward the back, he noticed the bustling diner had momentarily quieted. All eyes seemed to turn to him. He wasn't just a man walking to speak with the owner. He was the embodiment of unspoken tension and the promise of resolution. Jake reached the back door and hesitated, taking a deep breath before pushing it open. The familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee washed over him, mingling with the sounds of the kitchen. Tom was there, standing by the coffee machine, wearing a weary smile, the kind that hinted at stress but also flickered with hope. Hey Jake, Tom said, his voice quiet but steady. Yeah, Jake replied, his heart pounding. Tom nodded, pouring a cup of coffee and handing it over. I didn't mean for things to get so heated. I value what we have here. Jake felt a weight lift. Hearing those words made all the difference. I know I might have overreacted too. It's just, Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. I get it. As they both stood in the small kitchen, the busy diner faded away and a sense of camaraderie began to form again. The division that had felt so stark only days before now appeared so trivial. I want you to know that I appreciate you, Jake, Tom continued. I appreciate your feedback, your ideas. They make this place better. Jake felt warmth wash over him, and I need to remember how to communicate better, especially with you. This diner has always felt like home for me. For the first time since the argument, they both chuckled, the tension lifting as laughter met the air. It felt like a bridge being rebuilt, unstitching the seams of their broken connection. Each moment was a step closer to healing. Tom smiled, his eyes sparkling. You're damn right it is. They exchanged stories about customers, about recipe ideas, and even shared a few personal anecdotes that deepened their bond. With each laugh, each shared memory, they began to erase the harsh words that had stained their relationship. Eventually, Tom leaned against the counter, looking contemplative. You know, this little diner brings people together, doesn't it? Absolutely, Jake agreed, pausing to take a sip of his fresh coffee. The taste felt different now, bitter and sweet all at once. Tom nodded, looking grateful. Thanks for hearing me out. Just then, the back door swung open and Lily popped her head in, a curious look on her face. Both men turned to her, a shared smile breaking across their faces. Jake nodded. As they rejoined the bustling diner, the comforting aroma of food wafted around them. The laughter and chatter of customers filled his heart with warmth. Jake knew that sometimes fragile things could be rebuilt, even when it felt impossible. In that cozy diner, amidst the clattering of dishes and the laughter of friends, Jake realized that life was a continuous journey of connections. And with each connection, there would be moments of confusion, heartbreak, and resolution. But through it all, the willingness to reach out, to apologize, and to forgive could mend what felt broken. As he settled back into his booth, sipping that magical cup of coffee, Jake understood that he had found something much more profound than just the taste of perfection. He had rekindled a relationship that mattered deeply, and in this small-town diner he felt at home once more. Rain fell in heavy sheets, drumming against the pavement like 1,000 tiny drummers, each drop carving paths through puddles. Joshua stood beneath the awning of his favorite cafe, watching the world blur through the rain. It was a place filled with memories, laughter, and warm conversations. But today Joshua felt distant, like a sandcastle eroded by waves. Last week, a small argument had erupted between him and the cafe's owner, a passionate woman named Mia. What started as a simple disagreement over a coffee blend quickly spiraled. Both of them, too fierce in their beliefs, had crossed lines they couldn't just sweep away. Now the air felt heavy with unspoken words. He glanced at his phone, fingers drumming against it, hesitating to reach out. But deep down, he knew he was missing something vital. He needed this connection, this warm corner of the world where he was seen and heard. With a deep breath, he pushed those thoughts aside and re-entered the storm of rainy streets. Inside the cafe, he shook off the chill. The aroma of rich coffee hugged him like a long-lost friend. The small space buzzed with chatter, and he spotted Mia behind the counter, her brow furrowed as she worked. Her curly hair caught the light, glistening as she moved, making it hard for him to remember why they were at odds in the first place. Joshua moved to a corner table, his heart thumping louder than the rain outside. He couldn't ignore the knot in his stomach. He missed his conversations with Mia, the back and forth that sparked ideas and creativity. She saw the world differently, and that was always refreshing. But now their connection felt like a chasm between them. After a few moments, he decided he had to take a step forward. He approached the counter where the scent of fresh pastries tickled his senses. As he reached Mia, she looked up, her eyes surprised but quickly masked by a stiff expression. "Hey Mia," he started, his voice slightly unsteady. "Hey," she replied, looking back to the espresso machine. An awkward silence stretched between them like a tightrope. Joshua could see the tension flicker in her shoulders. He took a deep breath, summoning whatever courage he had left. "I wanted to check in about our conversation." For just a moment, Mia paused, her hands stilled over the steaming coffee. She looked up, meeting his gaze. That simple admission opened a door. Joshua could see the faintest crack in her armor. "I didn't mean to come off so harshly," she admitted, her voice softer now. "I really value what you bring to this place, your ideas, your passion. That's fair," he said, nodding. "I know I got caught up too." The connection sparked back to life in that moment. There was a seriousness in her expression that pulled him in. They were both standing on the edge of something precarious, something that could either break or mend their relationship. The cafe around them buzzed with the sounds of laughter and life, but for them, it felt oddly still. "Maybe we're both just really passionate about what we do," Mia said, a hint of a smile sneaking onto her face. "Yeah, I guess we are," Joshua replied, relief flooding through him. "Neither would I," she said, her posture relaxing. "It's more than just a cafe to me." Just then the door swung open and a gust of wind blew through, scattering napkins across the counter. Mia laughed, a genuine sound that melted the tension hanging in the air. "See?" Joshua couldn't help but chuckle, feeling his own barriers break down. But as their shared moment began to breathe life into the cafe, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He quickly checked it and his smile faltered. It was a message from Mia. "Sorry for our argument. Let's put it behind us. I value our friendship." Joshua glanced at her, unsure of what to say. They had just begun to bridge the gap, and here was a reminder of the fracture between them. He hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Mia noticed the change in his demeanor, concern flickering across her features. She asked, her tone shifting. "It's your message," he said softly. "But I think we should just talk face to face. That's better, right?" "Absolutely," she agreed, the tension easing. As they moved past the counter and back to the intimate seating area, the atmosphere shifted. He could see the curiosity of the other customers in the cafe, their eyes flitting toward the connection that was rebuilding right in front of them. The rain outside had lessened to a drizzle, creating a soothing backdrop that made everything feel cozy. As they settled into a booth, the hum of the cafe around them created an almost bubble-like effect, isolating their little world from everything outside. Joshua asked, his voice steady but warm. Mia bit her lip, contemplating. Honestly, I was hurt. I felt like you didn't see my side of things. I didn't mean it like that, he replied, wanting to bridge this gap once more. I thought we were both trying to find the best path for this cafe. As he spoke, he could see Mia's posture relax further. I think we just need to remember we're on the same team. Exactly, Joshua said, feeling a spark of hope. And sometimes that passion can blur our understanding, like a fog. Mia nodded, their eyes locking in a moment of understanding. I can see that now. Their conversation flowed naturally from there. They laughed, shared stories, and examined their thoughts about not just the cafe, but also their lives outside it. With every word, the past began to unravel, replaced by warmth and camaraderie. Time slipped away in that cozy corner of the cafe. Minutes turned into an hour, and Joshua lost track of everything outside. He felt the rain lessening, the world transforming from bleak to beautiful. The sun tried to peek through the thick clouds, as if reflecting the change blooming between them. Mia took a sip from her cup, her eyes sparkling. You know, these moments are the ones that make everything worthwhile. I want more of them, Joshua smiled, feeling lighter. Same here, I think we can both work on that. Yes, as they spoke, they started to paint a picture of what the cafe could become, not just as a business, but as a community. Ideas flowed: a book club, open mic nights, special coffee blends that celebrated local artists. With every suggestion, their excitement grew and the space pulsed with revival. Just as they reached a crescendo of ideas, Mia's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her expression shifting. It's the supplier. Her voice dropped slightly. Joshua sensed her frustration but saw the determination behind it. Mia's eyes narrowed playfully. I might surprise you, he said with a grin. With that, they both leapt back into the rhythm of problem-solving together, falling into their passions easily. Surrounded by the familiar warmth of the cafe, Joshua felt a connection strengthen, not just to the place but to Mia herself. Less than an hour later, after brainstorming and cracking jokes, Mia turned to him, a grateful smile lighting her face. I didn't realize how much I needed this today. Thank you for coming in and checking on me. Joshua shrugged, a shy smirk on his lips. At that moment, the rain subsided and sunlight burst through the window like a golden spotlight. The world outside transformed, the air now filled with the fresh scent of everything renewed. Joshua smiled at Mia, and in their shared silence, a quiet understanding blossomed between them. No more arguing, no more distance, just the embrace of friendship and a shared dream of brewing something more meaningful together. And as he returned to work with Mia in the cafe, Joshua felt a renewed sense of purpose. Maybe life wasn't always easy. But through conversations, connections, and a dash of vulnerability, they could navigate whatever storms came their way. Even on the rainiest days, the sun was waiting just behind the clouds. The rain beat down heavily, pounding against the windows of the small diner like a relentless drummer. Inside, the warm glow of yellow lights created an inviting atmosphere, contrasting sharply with the gray world outside. Jake sat alone in a corner booth, staring at his untouched coffee. The steam curled in front of him, rising and twisting, almost like the thoughts tangled up in his mind. It had been a week since the argument with Tom, the owner. It had started over something trivial, what seemed like a harmless suggestion to change the menu. But instead of a conversation, it turned into a heated exchange. Both men, usually so amicable, had let their frustrations explode, leaving Jake feeling hurt and confused. As a regular at this diner for years, it felt like losing a piece of home. He toyed with the idea of reaching out. Maybe he could fix things, but doubt gnawed at him. What if Tom was still angry? What if they were forever stuck in this awkward silence? Just then Lily, the waitress with a friendly smile, approached his table, a slight frown forming on her face. She asked, her voice laced with concern. Jake forced a smile. Yeah, just thinking about. You haven't touched your coffee, she pointed out gently, glancing at the untouched mug that sat like an afterthought. With a little sigh, Jake nodded, though he felt far from certain. The truth was, he couldn't shake the disquiet that had settled in his chest. To drown out those feelings, he took a deep breath, deciding it was time to take a risk. With resolve, he pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he typed a message to Tom. Hey, can we talk? As his finger hovered over the send button, he hesitated. Would Tom really want to talk? Would he even be ready to mend fences after their explosive fight? Taking another deep breath, Jake pressed send, the message zipping away into the void of the digital world. Moments passed, and the tight knot in his stomach twisted further. Just as he began to think he had made a mistake, his phone buzzed. The screen lit up with Tom's name. Heart racing, Jake clicked it open. Hey Jake, sorry about our argument. Can you come by tomorrow? Relief washed over him like rain washing away dust from the streets. There it was, an olive branch extended. He quickly responded, of course. The next day came, and Jake felt a newfound energy coursing through him as he walked into the diner. It was bustling, the familiar sounds of clattering dishes and cheerful chatter wrapping around him like a warm blanket. But his eyes searched for Tom. He spotted him behind the counter, busying himself with orders, yet a weight hung on his shoulders, visible even from afar. Jake slipped into his usual booth, taking a moment to gather his thoughts. Lily approached with a kind smile, pouring a fresh cup of coffee. "You're brave, coming back after what happened." Jake nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure if he was. "I hope so, good luck," she said softly. As the minutes crept by, Jake felt his palms grow sweaty on the table. Suddenly, just as time seemed to stretch, Tom walked over. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment there was a mix of tension and relief. "Hey, Jake," Tom said, his voice low, almost hesitant. "Hey," Jake replied, the words feeling heavy. Tom slid into the booth opposite him. "I've been meaning to reach out, but—" Jake nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Yeah, I do." Tom ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I let my emotions cloud my judgment. My passion for this diner got the best of me." Jake felt the tension drain from his shoulders. "I didn't handle it well either. I thought I was just trying to help. I care about this place too." A flicker of regret crossed Tom's face. "I appreciate you saying that. This diner has always felt like a second home to me, just as it is for you." In that moment, the air grew lighter, the storm cloud hanging over their relationship beginning to dissipate. "Maybe we both got too caught up in our own ideas," Jake suggested. "Absolutely," Tom agreed, nodding thoughtfully. "And I think we should meet regularly to discuss changes moving forward." "Exactly," Jake said, feeling energized. "There's so much we can do with this place. Let's bring in community ideas or even host events. We could have an open mic night, a book club." A smile broke across Tom's face, and for the first time since entering the diner, the air was filled with laughter again. "I like that idea." As the two sank into conversation, they began sketching new ideas for the diner. They moved from one thought to another, their voices overlapping with excitement. In a world outside where the rain had finally stopped, the sun's warm rays began filtering through the windows, illuminating the chatter and rekindling the spirit that had been missing. For the next hour, they fleshed out a vision for the diner that felt revitalizing. Each suggestion, each nod of agreement pulled them closer, mending the rips that had torn their friendship apart. But then, just as naturally as their conversation flowed, Jake's phone buzzed again, pulling him from their productive brainstorming session. Scrambled to check it, a quick jolt of surprise grounding him as he saw a message from Lily. "Hey, are you two okay? You look engaged." Jake chuckled softly, glancing up at Tom, who raised an eyebrow. "Good," Tom said, returning to their discussion. Jake felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. This diner wasn't just a building, it was a heartbeat of their community. It brought people together through meals, conversations, and shared moments of laughter. "You know, that's what makes this place special. And that means we gotta take care of each other," Tom added, leaning back in his seat. A comfortable silence wrapped around them as they both reflected on the journey that had led them here. The anger, the disappointment, it all seemed like a distant memory. They had faced the storm together and emerged stronger for it. As they wrapped up their meeting, Jake felt a sense of hope washing over him. This was just the beginning. They had a renewed purpose, and he couldn't wait to dive in. As he rose to leave, Tom clapped a hand on his shoulder, a genuine smile on his face. "Thank you for coming back, Jake. It really means a lot." Jake smiled back, feeling a surge of appreciation. "Of course, this diner is home to me." Outside, the sun bathed the streets in golden light, a stark contrast to the previous day's storm. Jake stepped out, taking a deep breath filled with fresh possibilities. As he walked down the sidewalk, he felt lighter, as if the weight of doubt had been lifted. In the days that followed, the energy in the diner shifted. Customers filled the seats, laughter rang through the air, and new ideas began taking root. Jake and Tom worked side by side, iron sharpening iron, as they pushed each other to innovate and grow the diner into a place of community spirit. They launched open mic nights that drew in locals sharing their stories, creating an atmosphere of warmth and acceptance. Community bulletin boards filled with flyers and notes of encouragement. Each customer felt included, a vital part of the growing family that defined the diner. One chilly evening, as they finished setting up for a live music night, Jake noticed Tom standing back as musicians began to set up, pride shining in his eyes. "Look what we've created together," he said softly. Jake nodded, watching the scene unfold. "Yeah, it's beautiful." As the first notes filled the diner, wrapping around them like a warm blanket, Jake understood why he had felt so lost without this place, without Tom. They had nurtured something important, something larger than themselves. With every strum of the guitar, with every laugh shared over coffee, they were building a legacy, one that would ripple through their community. And in doing so, they found not just a renewed friendship, but a testament to the power of forgiveness and connection. In those vibrant moments, both men realized they had weathered the storm, re-emerging into a sunshine brighter than they had ever dreamed, a tapestry woven through shared experiences, lessons learned, and a commitment to always check in on one another. And through it all, as customers enjoyed their fulfilled laughter, Jake was reminded that sometimes it takes just a small nudge to recover what seemed lost, the strength to apologize and the courage to rebuild. The breath of the bustling city faded into a dull hum as Mark stepped into the old bookstore, a place he had come to love over the years. The familiar scent of paper and ink wrapped around him like a warm embrace, bringing back memories of quiet afternoons spent lost in novels. But today, a tension hung heavy in the air. His eyes flickered to the back of the store where Sarah, the owner, typically stood behind the counter, perusing through shipments. Today, however, she was engaged in a hushed conversation with a customer, her expression tense and furrowed. Mark's heart sank. Last week had been far from perfect. An argument had erupted between them over a new promotional idea. Mark had suggested a book club for young adults. Sarah had felt it undermined her vision and taken it as a personal affront. Minutes ticked by as Mark lingered by the entrance, the automatic door's chime announcing his presence but feeling brightly discordant in the heavy silence. He could still feel the remnants of their argument pulsing in his mind. How had they let it get so out of hand? What had once been fruitful discussions suddenly began feeling combative, and now both of them were left standing in this awkward aftermath. Just then Sarah caught his eye, her expression softened, but Mark could see the tentativeness lingering. "Hey Mark," she called softly. The words brought both relief and anxiety. Mark nodded, moving deeper into the store, navigating through the maze of shelves that seemed to close in around him. They settled into a cozy nook at the back, where sunlight streamed through the large windows and illuminated dust particles floating in the air. "Thanks for coming in," she said, her voice quiet. The way she said it bore the weight of their recent conflict, ringing with sincerity. He took a breath, looking for the right words. "I just wanted to check in. I missed talking to you. What happened last week?" Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, but it wasn't in anger, it was contemplative. "I didn't handle it well either. I felt like you were dismissing my vision, and that hit hard." Mark nodded, understanding and regret flooding in. "I get that. It's not just a job for you, it's your passion. I only wanted to add to it, not take away from it." Gradually, the tension began to ease. Sarah's shoulders relaxed, and her gaze met his with a flicker of vulnerability. "I appreciate you saying that. I think we both wanted the same thing," Mark replied. A moment of silence settled between them, heavy but warm, as if the air itself was absorbing their tension, creating space for understanding. Mark saw the hurt begin to fade from Sarah's eyes, replaced by the spark he knew so well. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, jolting him back to reality. He glanced at the screen, and a message notification from Sarah's name caught his eye. His brows furrowed in confusion. Sarah looked surprised. "What? I didn't send." He quickly opened it. The message read, "Mark, I'm sorry for the way I reacted to your idea. I shouldn't have treated you like that." Stunned, Mark looked up at her. Sarah's cheeks flushed slightly. "I never meant to shut you down. I felt overwhelmed." Mark leaned forward, the weight of their conversation shifting. "You're not losing anything. Your vision is strong. I only wanted to help incorporate something new." Her eyes softened further. They both felt an unspoken connection rekindling as they spoke, like fragile threads weaving back together. The chaos that had once shadowed their relationship was slowly giving way to a stronger unity, one based on collaboration rather than contention. Mark felt a surge of optimism. "So maybe we can have a brainstorming day?" "That sounds perfect," Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength. It would engage the community. The conversation flowed freely from there, ideas bouncing between them. They began to envision a vibrant event that could bring in young adults and ignite their love for reading. As they discussed various themes and potential activities, laughter started to bubble up, moments of lightness piercing through the earlier heaviness. Just then, a couple of guests entered, warm greetings floating through the air as the bell jingled above the door. Mark noticed how Sarah's face instantly brightened, her spirit revitalized by the hum of the bookstore. She greeted them with genuine warmth, and Mark felt a swell of admiration. He watched as she moved effortlessly, engaging the new customers while still making him feel included. It became clear to him that this place wasn't just a shop, it was their sanctuary, filled with not only books but also connections. As the afternoon wore on, they threw ideas around, poetry readings, local authors sharing stories, themed nights. Mark felt invigorated, imagining how this new vision could pull the community together in unexpected ways. They fueled each other's creativity, igniting hope in the dusty corners of the bookstore that had remained stagnant. At one point, Sarah turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "You know, it's funny. We can be so passionate about our visions that we overlook what's most important, listening." Mark nodded, feeling a shared understanding wrap around them. And it's in those moments of silence that the best ideas often arise. Sarah smiled at him, the spark of their renewed camaraderie lighting up the space between them. "Absolutely. Maybe that can be part of our brainstorming day, taking moments to listen." Mark felt a jolt of excitement, the kind that can only emerge from a collaborative spirit. Yes, exactly. The hours slipped away as they continued their conversation, the bookstore transforming into a place of collaboration, healing, and creativity. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the walls with golden hues, Mark realized he had not just repaired a bridge, he had reinforced it. As they wrapped up their planning, Sarah hesitated for a moment, her gaze steady on him. "Mark, thank you for being here, for being open to this." He smiled back, relief washing over him. I think we just both needed a check-in, you know, she nodded. It's a lot easier to let conflicts fester than to face them. Just then, Mark's phone buzzed again, breaking the moment of reflection. He glanced down and saw another message notification, this time from Lily. Hey, just checking in. Mark chuckled softly and showed it to Sarah. Sarah laughed, that familiar lightness returning to her eyes. How could they not be? As they busied themselves packing up for the day, the atmosphere in the bookstore felt electrifying, shifting from the tension that shadowed them earlier to the brightness that came with hope and possibility. The connection had fired back to life, knitting them together as a team committed to a common vision. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. As they prepared for the upcoming event, the buzz of excitement spread through the community. Regular patrons began chiming in, bringing their ideas and suggestions, feeling part of an unfolding narrative. The bookstore transformed into a hub of collaboration, a space where people felt free to express their love for reading. Weeks flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Their brainstorming day arrived, drawing in people from all walks of life, all eager to lend their voices and creativity. The energy was palpable as laughter echoed through the bookstore, filling it with life. Mark and Sarah stood side by side, watching it all unfold, a united front. And as the sun set that day, painting the sky with colors only nature could conjure, Mark turned to Sarah, his heart filled with gratitude. She nodded, a quiet pride radiating from her. Together, Mark chuckled lightly. Absolutely, communication first, conflict later. The atmosphere within the bookstore had changed permanently. No longer just a place to buy books, it had become a community where collaboration thrived, where bonds strengthened, and where friendships blossomed. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever came next, book in hand and smiles on their faces. And as they looked out over their gathering, Mark realized they had transformed not only their professional relationship, but had opened up a newfound friendship, a bond that would continue to grow as long as they stayed true to each other and to the heart of the bookstore they both adored. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Alex stepped into the dimly lit restaurant, the sound mingling with the comforting clank of dishes in the bustling kitchen. The familiar aroma of spices and grilled meats filled the air, wrapping around him like an old blanket. Yet beneath that comfort lay a thick layer of tension, a silence that felt heavy and out of place. Just days ago, Alex had his world shaken when he clashed with Liam, the owner's son. It started as a simple suggestion about the menu, a dish Alex thought would appeal to more customers. But what followed was a heated argument that left both men feeling bruised and hurt. In a place that felt like home, a rift had split their friendship wide open. As he walked through the restaurant, his heart sank a little more with each step. Familiar faces greeted him, but the energy felt different. The staff exchanged uneasy glances, and the usual cheer seemed muted. He settled into his usual booth, a favorite spot by the window where the rain fell heavily, streaking the glass like tears. He glanced toward the kitchen, his chest tightening. Liam was there, focused intently on assembling an order, his back turned. The tension in the air felt almost electric. Only a few days had passed, but it was a lifetime of silence between them. It was hard to believe how quickly things had turned sour. As minutes slipped by, Alex fiddled with his phone, watching the rain race down the window, trying to remember the good times they had shared. He thought about the countless evenings spent laughing, brainstorming ideas, and dreaming about the future of the restaurant. But those memories now felt distant, overshadowed by anger and resentment. At that moment, Alex noticed a familiar presence approaching. It was Emma, the waitress with a bright smile that could light up the darkest days. Her expression shifted as she reached his table, concern etched across her features. Hey, Alex, he shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. Not really, just... Emma sat down across from him, her gaze steady and kind. Yeah, Alex sighed. I didn't mean for things to escalate the way they did. I know, she replied, her voice gentle. But sometimes passion can turn into anger. You both want the same thing for this restaurant. You just got lost in the... Alex nodded, feeling the weight of those words. He leaned back, reflecting on their heated exchange, the way pride had clouded their judgment. It was as if they had both overlooked the heart of the restaurant, their shared love for food and the people who came to enjoy it. Just then, an unexpected vibration startled him. He fished his phone out of his pocket and saw a new message from Liam. His heart raced. What could this be about? Taking a deep breath, he opened the message. Hey, Alex, can we talk? The relief that flooded through him was immediate, but it was mingled with anxiety. Did Liam really want to talk? Was it safe to open that door again? He hesitated for a moment, but his fingers moved on their own. Sure, he typed back. Can you come by later? Alex looked up at Emma, who had been watching him with a mix of curiosity and hope. He nodded slowly. Good, she said, we both need this. As the dinner rush unfolded in the restaurant, the energy shifted with the sounds of clattering plates and laughter. With each passing minute, Alex felt a mix of anticipation and unease stir within him. He picked at his food, barely tasting it, lost in the whirlwind of what their conversation might hold. Finally, the din quieted, and after a flurry of activity, Liam emerged from the kitchen. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on Alex, and for a moment there was a palpable silence between them, like two magnets that had lost their pull. Alex met his gaze, taking a deep breath as Liam approached the table. "Hey," he said, his voice low, almost hesitant. "Hey," Alex replied, unsure of how to navigate this delicate situation. "Thanks for coming," Liam said, sliding into the seat across from him. The tension was thick, but there was also something else in the air, an unspoken hope buried beneath the surface. "I got your message," Alex said simply, searching for the right words. "I'm sorry for how I reacted," Liam started, his eyes searching Alex's. "I was just stressed, you know how things have been." Alex felt the weight of those words settle between them. "I didn't mean to criticize you." "I know," Liam said softly, "but sometimes my ego gets in the way. I care about this place so much that when I feel attacked, I lash out." Alex nodded, feeling the truth in Liam's admission. "I get that, I've done the same." As they talked, the walls that had grown between them began to crumble, piece by piece. They shared memories of better days, stories from customers who had come to appreciate the restaurant, and dreams of what they still wanted to build together. But just as their conversation began to flow, the vulnerability between them sparked a sudden realization. Alex needed to ask the question that had been haunting him. "Liam, do you think we can get past this?" Liam's gaze softened and he leaned in closer. "I want to. I care about our friendship. It means a lot to me." "I believe in that too," Alex said, feeling a sense of hope wash over him. "I don't want this to be the end of what we built together." "You're right," Liam agreed, a smile breaking across his face. "Let's make that a priority." With that simple promise, a new understanding hung in the air. They might have stumbled, but they had the chance to grow from it. And as they continued talking, shifting from past mistakes to future dreams, the bond between them began to rekindle, igniting a fire that had flickered but not extinguished. As they shared ideas about the restaurant, discussing new specials and potential promotions for the community, Alex felt a sense of invigoration. They were stepping forward together, no longer trapped in the shadows of their argument. The restaurant was not just a job, it was a shared dream, a labor of love that needed both of their visions. After a long conversation where honesty reigned, the sun began to set outside, casting golden rays through the windows. The restaurant glowed, filled with warmth, the same warmth that now blossomed in their friendship. Liam leaned back, a thoughtful look on his face. "I think we're ready to take on whatever comes next." "Together," Alex echoed, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. "We're stronger as a team." They clasped hands in a moment of solidarity, the weight of their earlier fight dissolving into laughter and relief. The restaurant had returned to its vibrancy, their relationship feeling renewed. As they rejoined the bustling dining room, Alex took a moment to appreciate the scene around him. The happy customers, the sounds of glasses clinking, and the vibrant conversations all created a tapestry of community that they had nurtured together. In the days that followed, things felt different. Alex and Liam made it a point to check in with each other regularly, offering support and encouragement. The restaurant began to flourish under their renewed bond, and the energy shifted. Even other staff members noticed the change. Emma smiled more, the tension that had once gripped the place becoming a distant memory. They began to host fun events, drawing in more customers, and watched as those relationships grew stronger. Alex looked around the dining room one evening, feeling gratitude wash over him. The laughter ringing in his ears was a beautiful reminder of what they had all built together. It was through the struggles, the hurt, and finally the honest conversations that their love for this restaurant deepened. As they stood side by side, catching glimpses of the success they had fought for, Alex felt more assured in their friendship than ever. They had faced the storm, navigated the chaos, and emerged on the other side with a bond that felt unbreakable. And in that spirit of collaboration and trust, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they could face them together. The restaurant continued to thrive, each dish representing not just a meal, but a journey of friendship, resilience, and community spirit. Underneath the laughter and the warmth, they had forged a deeper understanding that extended beyond the walls of their restaurant. They had learned the importance of communication, humility, and the power of checking in, all while creating something beautiful: their dream, their passion, their shared story. The night was unusually still, the kind of silence that amplifies every tiny sound. In the corner of the dimly lit bar, a lone figure sat, nursing a glass of whiskey. David watched the ice slowly melt, its quiet plinking against the glass echoing his swirling thoughts. Just days ago, everything had felt so right. He loved this place, the people he worked with, and the strong bond they had built. But now a deep chill crept through the air, a rift forming between him and Angela, the bar's owner. It all started last week during a frantic rush on a Friday night. Patrons packed the bar, laughter and chatter swirling around them like a warm embrace. David had made a suggestion about a new cocktail that he thought would bring in more customers. A simple idea, one he thought would enhance the bar's already impressive menu. But instead of gratitude, Angela had snapped. Her voice had grown sharp, angry even, dismissing his suggestion as if it were nonsense. She had said, her eyes narrowed in frustration, The hurt in David's chest had burned. It wasn't just the rejection of his idea, it was the way she said it, the way her words cut through the camaraderie they had built over countless late-night shifts spent dreaming together. Now, as he sat in that same bar, the usual camaraderie felt hollow. Every cheerful laugh felt like a reminder of their fight. The happy music that usually made him tap his foot now felt grating. Glancing around, he noted familiar faces enjoying their drinks, but he felt isolated, detached. A pit of uncertainty churned in his stomach. The door swung open, slapping against the wall, and a gust of wind swirled in as a familiar figure entered. Angela. Her hair framed her face in the soft glow of the dim lights, but the smile that usually lit up her features was absent. She quickly glanced around, meeting David's eyes for a fleeting moment, and then turned to grab a drink from the bar. David's heart raced. Should he say something? Should he just let it go? He knew he didn't want it to fester between them, but pride had a way of keeping him rooted in place. He watched as she busied herself behind the bar, pouring drinks and casually chatting with customers, but he couldn't shake the feeling of distance. Finally, after the rush began to dwindle, Angela found herself seated at the bar, her fingers nervously tapping against the wooden surface. David hesitated, but something pushed him forward. He made his way over, trying to steady his breath, heart pounding in his chest. "Hey," he said quietly, trying to muster enough confidence. "Eh," she replied, her voice lacking its usual warmth. The words felt like ice on the air between them. "I wanted to talk about what happened," David began, feeling the familiar knot in his stomach tight. Angela looked down, avoiding his gaze. "I know." There it was, an opening. David felt a flicker of hope. "You were really upset that night." "I've just been overwhelmed," she replied, still not meeting his eyes. "Running this place, keeping everything together." "I get it," he said, his tone gentle. "But I thought we were a team." Angela finally looked up, her expression softening just a touch. "We are a team, and I value your input. I've put so much into this bar, and when I feel like something threatens it, I react." David nodded, feeling the weight of her words. It wasn't easy running a business, especially one built on passions and dreams. "I'm sorry too," he said. She sighed, the tension easing just a little. "Absolutely," he replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "Let's find a way to move forward." Just then, David's phone buzzed in his pocket, startling both of them. He glanced at the screen and saw a message notification from Angela. His heart skipped a beat. "Hey, I'm really sorry for reacting the way I did. Let's forget about it." He looked up and their eyes met. This time there was understanding. They had both acknowledged their mistakes. He exclaimed, a smile creeping onto his face. "Seriously, I thought I sent it earlier," Angela chuckled, a hint of relief breaking through. David laughed, remembering the chaotic energy of the past week. In that moment, he realized a significant change had occurred between them. The strain that had hung heavy in the air began to lift, like fog dissipating under the morning sun. They were both vulnerable, and vulnerability created depth. "Let's make a pact," Angela suggested, her eyes sparkling slightly. "You bring ideas to me, and I promise not to react in anger." "Coffee sounds good," David said with a grin, "and if you ever feel overwhelmed, just say something." "A deal," she agreed, her smile returning. The warmth of friendship flickered back like a light ignited after too long in the dark. It dazzled the edges of their fraught relationship, paving the way for something more nourishing. As they moved on from that fragile moment, they began brainstorming new menu ideas together, infusing their conversations with enthusiasm and creativity. It felt invigorating, the kind of collaboration they had initially thrived upon. They exchanged ideas for new cocktails, seasonal specials that would keep patrons coming back, and events that would draw in the community. With every idea bounced back and forth, their past misunderstandings began to dissolve, replaced with excitement for the future. Hours slipped away and the bar transformed, the atmosphere gradually shifting as laughter and light returned. Patrons were drawn to the renewed energy, and the familiar sounds of clinking glasses and animated conversations filled the air as the night went on. As the evening wound down, David felt a sense of completion growing within him. The tension from earlier in the week had finally evaporated, replaced with the sweet aroma of camaraderie that had once defined their working relationship. He glanced at Angela, who was wiping down the bar, a satisfied grin plastered across her face. "You know, I think we make a pretty good team," he said, unable to hide the smile tugging at his lips. She turned, her eyes flickering with a familiar spark. "I think so too." The warmth of her words enveloped him, and in that moment David realized that their friendship had been strengthened through this trial. They had faced the storm and emerged more connected than before. It may have taken an argument to get there, but sometimes those moments were the catalyst for change. "Let's keep this going," he suggested, filled with newfound confidence. "Regular check-ins," she responded, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can bring everyone in and create a real community feel." As they discussed ways to bring that vision to life, David felt excited. This wasn't just about the bar, it was about creating a culture of support and collaboration. He wanted to cultivate an environment where every voice mattered, not just his own. By the time they finished up that night, the rain had stopped outside, replaced by a stillness that felt promising. The streetlights flickered on one by one, illuminating the world with a golden glow. Angela stepped outside and David followed, both taking a moment to breathe in the fresh air. "Here's to new beginnings," she said, raising an imaginary glass towards the sky. "New beginnings," David echoed, feeling the surge of possibility. As they parted ways that evening, both of them felt lighter. They had confronted their fears and misunderstandings, and in doing so had rekindled a deep-rooted friendship that would weather whatever challenges lay ahead. Days turned into weeks and the bar flourished. They instituted regular brainstorming sessions, inviting the staff and even loyal patrons to share their ideas. The energy was palpable, the excitement spilling over in every direction. The struggle they had faced had become a catalyst for growth. Even some customers began to notice the change. Angela's once tense demeanor became less pronounced, replaced by a genuine joy that radiated throughout the bar. The patrons could feel it, the warmth, the camaraderie, and the sense of community. Every drink now felt like a shared experience. David couldn't help but smile. He had always believed that a good bar was more than just drinks. It was about the experience, the connections made, and the stories shared. One evening, as they stood behind the bar filled with laughter and chatter, David leaned over to Angela, his voice low. Angela laughed, shaking her head. "It's funny how those things work out, isn't it?" "Exactly," David said, feeling a sense of gratitude flood over him. As the night progressed and the bar thrummed with the energy of connection, they knew they had created a safe space for everyone involved. They understood that the true magic was in the moments shared, in the laughter that came easily, and in the bonds forged through honesty. Life in the bar continued to flourish, each night adding a new chapter to their story. Friends and patrons became family, celebrating milestones and creating unforgettable moments together. Each drink, each conversation built upon the foundation they had reestablished. And through it all, David and Angela remained steadfast, champions of communication, advocates of growth, and keepers of a strong partnership. They had learned that sometimes the hardest moments led to the most beautiful outcomes, and from that night onward, they faced every obstacle hand in hand, ready to embrace the future together. As the last of the evening light began to fade, Ethan stood outside the quaint little cafe he had frequented for years. It was a local gem, a place where laughter and warmth mingled with the rich aroma of coffee brewing and pastries baking. But tonight, the cozy charm felt overshadowed by the heavy tension between him and its owner, Clara. A flashing neon open sign pulsed rhythmically, almost mocking the silence hovering in the air. Just days ago, everything between them seemed flawless. Clara had poured her heart and soul into this cafe, and over countless shifts, Ethan had come to admire not only her passion but also their growing friendship. That deep connection shattered during a meeting where his suggestion to change the menu had been met with fury. Clara had felt cornered, and in defending her vision, she had lashed out. Words were exchanged, heated and hurtful, leaving both of them standing on opposite sides of an invisible chasm. Ethan took a deep breath, steeling himself. He didn't want to leave things like this. He missed their conversations, the way they could banter like old friends. Reluctantly, he reached for the door and pushed it open, the familiar jingle of the bell sounding like a call to arms. As he stepped inside, the warmth enveloped him, though the atmosphere felt heavy. Clara stood behind the counter, her back turned as she meticulously arranged pastries in the display. The soft glow from the overhead lights caught the strands of her hair, but the tension in her posture was palpable, casting a shadow over the cafe like a storm cloud. "Hey," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. He wished for more courage, but the emotion of the past few days weighed heavily on him. She turned slowly, her brow furrowed, clearly surprised to see him. "Ethan," she replied, her voice cool. He could feel the walls rising between them again, but he pressed on. "I wanted to check in. I didn't mean to upset you the other day." Clara's eyes flashed with hurt before she softened just a bit. "I appreciate that, but it wasn't just about the menu change." Ethan felt guilt twist in his stomach. It had never been his intention to hurt her or invalidate her efforts. "I get that. I was trying to help, but I see now how it came off." For a moment they were caught in silence, the air thick with unspoken words. In that moment, Ethan could feel the weight of their shared history hanging in the balance. All the laughter, late-night brainstorming sessions, and shared dreams flooded over him like a wave. "Look," he said, clearing his throat, "I know how much this place means to you. I've seen you pour your heart into it. I never want to take away from that." Clara's posture relaxed slightly, though the tension still lingered. "You're right," she said slowly. "I want to hear your ideas, but also I need to feel respected." "Of course," he replied, feeling relief as he saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "I respect you and what you've built here." Just then, Clara's phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the moment. She picked it up, and her expression shifted. Ethan's heart sank as he realized it was a message notification from him. Had she been thinking about this all along and he hadn't even realized? "Sorry, I just need to check this," she said, glancing at the screen. Ethan waited, feeling a mix of worry and hope. When she looked up again, the softness in her gaze had deepened. "Maybe we both need to apologize for how we handled things," she admitted. "I can be stubborn too," he admitted, scratching the back of his neck. Me too, Clara replied. Her voice had softened, revealing the dynamic friendship they once enjoyed. There it was a breakthrough. The ice began to thaw and warmth kindled in the space between them. Maybe we can find a way to communicate better, Ethan suggested. Clara nodded in agreement, her defenses lowering further. I'd like that. I feel like we've been on edge for too long. Their conversation flowed more easily now, ideas bouncing back and forth like a lively game of ping pong. Suddenly, the cafe felt lighter, the air charged with the same familiar energy that had once connected them. But just as the mood began to lift, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Lydia, their mutual friend who often visited the cafe, had sent a message. Hey, heard things were tense. Ethan shared the message with Clara. Looks like everyone's been feeling the tension, he said, laughing slightly. Maybe it's a sign we need to clear the air, Clara remarked, her tone playful. Lydia is always looking out for us. Let's invite her over, Ethan suggested. We can talk about this together. Clara smiled, a genuine light returning to her eyes. I'd like that. And just like that, the mood shifted once more. They texted Lydia, who agreed to come over in a matter of minutes. As the minutes ticked by, Ethan felt like a weight was lifting. When Lydia arrived, she barely had time to sit down before they both dove into their story. Clara recounted the argument, and Ethan shared his perspective. Lydia listened intently, nodding along, the corners of her lips twitching into a smile. I love you both, she said, her voice dripping with warmth, but you need to communicate better. You're both so passionate about this place. With Lydia's encouragement, they began exchanging ideas, joking about the absurdity of their previous argument. Their voices grew more animated, and laughter filled the cafe again. They didn't just have a mission to revitalize the menu, they were already rekindling the joy that had made this cafe a second home. As night settled in, they tossed around ideas for headlining specials, brainstorming ways to host events that would bring the community together. They spoke of latte art, themed coffee nights, poetry readings, and local artists showcasing their work. Every suggestion was met with enthusiasm, and each laugh carried a healing echo that made the walls of the cafe feel welcoming again. Clara looked around at her cafe, ignited with excitement now. I can, Lydia said with a teasing smile. Ethan shot her a playful glance. I think it's more than just nudging. Clara nodded, a thoughtful look on her face. It was a wake-up call. With the evening wrapping up, Clara grabbed a bottle of sparkling water and 2 glasses. Here's to new beginnings, she declared, pouring them each a drink. To new beginnings, Ethan echoed, feeling the warmth swell within him. They clinked their glasses together, and in that instant they knew they were more than just colleagues. They were a team united under a shared dream. As the night wore on and the cafe emptied, they began planning their first event. Ideas poured out, flowing freely as they sketched out possibilities on napkins and the back of receipts. The world outside shifted from dusk to night, the quiet streets illuminated by the warm glow of streetlights. Inside the cafe, the atmosphere transformed completely. Laughter replaced earlier tension, and enthusiasm renewed the air, allowing creativity to thrive. A few weeks later, the first of their planned events took place, a coffee tasting evening, and the cafe buzzed with energy as locals filled every table. Clara beamed with pride as she watched familiar faces mingle with newcomers. Friends of friends, strangers becoming regulars, the community felt alive. Ethan stood by the counter, pouring handcrafted coffees, his heart racing with excitement. As the room filled with chatter and laughter, Clara joined his side. She said, her eyes sparkling. It really is, he replied, grinning ear to ear. As the evening unfolded with laughter spilling out onto the streets, Clara turned to Ethan. Thank you for checking in that day. I'm just glad we talked, he replied, sincerity filling his tone. It's so easy to let misunderstandings drift. Neither do I, Clara said, her smile infectious. Let's keep checking in. Absolutely, he agreed, feeling a newfound bond strengthen between them. As the night wore on, the cafe transformed from a mere business into a heartbeat for the community, and as Clara and Ethan stood side by side, they realized that their combined passion had rekindled more than just the cafe. It had reignited their friendship, a friendship built on understanding, respect, and the joy of shared dreams. Every shared laugh, every idea brought to life, reinforced their commitment to each other and the vibrant space they'd created together. It was tumultuous, messy, and beautiful, the essence of growth and friendship, reflected in every cup of coffee served and every smile exchanged. They had learned that it was okay to disagree, that challenges could lead to greater understanding, and that sometimes checking in was the most important thing of all. Together, they stood at the beginning of a journey filled with promise, ready to face whatever lay ahead side by side. The storm had rolled in unexpectedly, dark clouds swirling ominously above as Jake stood outside the local cafe. Rain dripped from the edge of the awning, splattering the sidewalk beneath his feet. He tightened his grip on the umbrella, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Inside, the glow of warm lights spilled out, mingling with the smell of freshly brewed coffee, but Jake hesitated. Just a few days ago, he and Clara, the owner of the cafe, had faced a heated argument. What started as a discussion about the menu had spiraled into a personal attack. Clara, frustrated by Jake's suggestions, had snapped. She felt attacked, and in her anger, she lashed out, leaving Jake shocked and hurt. Since then, the air felt thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. He had come to love this place, not just for its aroma and cozy atmosphere, but because of the friendship he had developed with Clara. And now, standing in the rain, he realized that he missed their connection more than he cared to admit. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door, stepping into the cafe's comforting embrace. As he entered, the warm air enveloped him like a hug. The cafe was alive with the sounds of laughter and soft conversations. The familiar faces of regular customers filled the space, but Jake's gaze searched for Clara. She was behind the counter, her back turned to him, focused on organizing the pastry display. "Hey," he said, his voice a little shaky as he approached. Clara turned slowly, surprise flickering across her face. "Jake," she replied, but her tone was flat, almost defensive. "It's been a few days," he started, trying to break the ice. He could feel the distance between them. "Yeah," she said, crossing her arms over her apron. Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "I wanted to check in." Clara looked down at the counter, her fingers fidgeting with a napkin. "I didn't handle it well either," she admitted, her voice softer now. "I've been under a lot of stress." "I get that," Jake replied, empathy flickering in his chest. "I just thought our discussions were open, that we could share ideas." For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of their shared history. Their friendship had evolved over countless late-night shifts, brainstorming sessions, and mutual support. Now it felt fragile, teetering on the brink of collapse. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the tension. She glanced at the screen, her face shifting into something more contemplative. "Excuse me," she said, turning her attention to the message. Jake watched as her brow furrowed. What could be so concerning? He took a deep breath, wanting to reach through the unspoken barrier. He asked gently. Clara looked back at him, her anxiety evident. "It's just some issues with the suppliers, nothing I can't handle," she said, but her voice held a thread of worry. Jake pressed, feeling a compulsion to help. They had built a relationship on trust and support. At that moment, Clara met his gaze, the walls that had grown between them beginning to crack. "Maybe we need to figure this out together," she said, her voice steadying. "But I need you to promise me you won't push too hard." Jake nodded, feeling a flicker of hope as he leaned forward. "I promise." Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed again. She flicked it open and her expression shifted. "Hold on," she said, her eyes scanning the message. Jake felt a surge of anxiety as he waited. In that moment, everything hung in the balance: their friendship, the cafe, the looming storm. Clara took a deep breath, and Jake could sense the hesitation weighing heavily on her. She asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Of course," Jake replied, stepping back. He turned away, feeling the stress in the air. But as he stood there, something inside him urged him to take action. This job, this cafe, everything was at stake. He didn't want to lose it all over a disagreement. A few minutes passed, filled with hushed whispers and the clink of dishes. Then Clara's voice pulled him back. "Jake, I need to apologize," she said, her tone more resolute now. "I let my stress get the better of me." Jake felt relief wash over him, but another question lingered in the air. Clara nodded, the warmth returning to her eyes. "Yes, I want to find a way to collaborate." Just then, Clara's phone buzzed again, pulling her attention away. She quickly glanced at another message, and her face drained of color. "Oh no," Jake asked, a knot forming in his stomach. Clara looked up, her eyes wide. "It's our supplier. They're having issues with deliveries, our coffee beans, our pastries. Everything is delayed." Panic fluttered inside Jake. This was not just about their friendship anymore. It affected the entire cafe. Clara's dreams were in jeopardy, and he couldn't just stand by. He asked, his mind racing. Clara bit her lip, wrestling with the gravity of the situation. "It's not that simple." Jake felt frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "But we can't just sit here and let this happen." For a moment, Clara's eyes flickered with something deeper doubt. "Fear, perhaps. I just don't know," she said, voice trembling. The stark reality sunk in, weighing heavily on their shoulders. Jake felt his heart pounding, the room closing in around him. Clara was right. They couldn't afford a setback. "I know we can't lose this place," Jake said, desperation creeping into his voice. "We can come up with contingency ideas. Let's ask regulars for their favorite homemade recipes." Clara looked up, surprise flickering across her features. "I know they would," Jake replied, determination filling his voice. "We've built a community here, and they care about this cafe as much as we do." A spark ignited in Clara's eyes. "That could work, exactly. We can ask local bakeries if they have supplies to share," he said, feeling the excitement buzzing between them. "Okay," Clara agreed, a smile breaking across her face. "Let's brainstorm a plan together." The storm outside intensified, rain pounding against the windows, but inside, their conversation brimmed with energy. They began writing down ideas that flew from their lips: a community bake-off, coffee tastings with local beans, encouraging customers to share their favorite memories from the cafe. As they pored over their notes, Clara glanced at the time. "We should get this into action. Let's do it," Jake said with a newfound zeal. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed again, pulling her attention away. "It's Lydia," she said, glancing at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the screen, and Jake could sense the hesitation. He asked, feeling a flicker of worry inching up his spine. Clara's brow furrowed and she looked conflicted. Jake asked, feeling uncertainty creeping in again. I guess we should, Clara replied. Let's be honest with her, Jake replied. We're working to find a solution. She hit send, her voice steadying as she connected. Lydia, as the conversation unfolded, the weight in the room morphed. Clara explained the challenges, and as expected, Lydia expressed her concern. But what surprised them was how quickly Lydia rallied her enthusiasm into a response. I'll help, she replied, her tone brightening. I can talk to a few other local coffee shops and see if they have any extra supplies to share. Energized by Lydia's willingness, Clara's confidence grew. Perfect. As they wrapped up the call, a sense of hope washed over them. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the cafe, a new energy emerged, a force fueled by collaboration and support. Okay, let's get this started, Clara said, determination in her voice. Just then, the front door burst open with a wild gust of wind, water spraying in, and walked Tom, the local florist. He was drenched but smiling, his arms piled with flowers. He shouted over the roar of the storm. Jake and Clara exchanged glances, the enormity of the moment sinking in. What had started as a slight disagreement had transformed into something larger, something that could not only save the cafe, but build a stronger community around it. Tom, Clara shouted back, excitement swelling in her chest. But before she could finish, thunder cracked overhead, shaking the building. The lights flickered ominously, and Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. With a glance at Clara, they exchanged a knowing look, a heart and determination in the face of uncertainty. They were in this together, they would fight to keep the cafe alive. Just as they turned back to Tom and opened their mouths to speak, the lights flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness. Everything was swallowed by the depths of blackness, leaving only the distant sounds of the storm echoing outside. In that moment of chaos, feelings of vulnerability washed over Jake. How would they face this challenge now? What if the storm disabled their plans completely? Eager whispers filled the darkness, and Clara's voice rose above the others. We can't give up now. We will figure this out together. And as the storm raged on outside, Jake realized something profound in that dark moment. They weren't just battling for the cafe. They were diving deep into their connection, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But as the storm continued to howl, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger, and what awaited them in the dark might change everything.